Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way.
Here's a little from Zohran Mamdani on how he's going to nationalize, or I guess institutionalize, city takeovers of the grocery stores.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Buck, I'm going to let Karol do the heavy lift on like the socialist component here, but can you talk, because you are a big radio star these days, a bit about what I think he's doing that, even though I think it's evil, I think he's managed to do something well, which is the slickness of the ads. The way the music is, the softness of the lens, there is something that they are doing there. He's carrying the little thing that all the social media people do, the little microphone. There's something else going on here that clearly Eric Adams isn't going to pick up on. I get it's all theatrics and everything else, but there is something to it. And then, Karol, you can handle the evil socialism.
I'm sure I'd like to hear what Carol's grandparents thought about bread lines at the grocery store. Like, I have a feeling they weren't big fans. I would just say that it's clearly slick. I thought his ad that I saw, particularly where he went into the kebab kiosks or whatever, the halal carts is what we call them in New York. But I think the ads where he went in and talked to these guys, and you get the sense that this guy really cares about everyday New Yorkers. Now, I think his policies are insane. I think he's going to be a disaster for the city. I mean, all that goes without saying. But yeah, he's slick. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this guy understands the medium and understands the message, which is why he was able to beat Cuomo, who's a big name guy. I mean, say what you will about what a jackass he is. A lot of times it's just the guy who everybody knows. And I can't even remember this, Zohran Mamdani was able to crush a guy who's got his dad was the governor before him and has a big bridge named after him just outside the city.
I'm starting to think that maybe Cuomo regrets killing all those old people because they vote in droves. Is there anything worse than an old person on election day? Karol, talk to me about socialism and government-run grocery stores.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't even have to go back to grandparents. My parents. I came to the United States when I was a small child. I heard all the stories about the Soviet Union and how when we got to Italy, which was, what legal immigration looked like back then. I know it's hard to imagine now, but there was a process and we had to go to Italy and apply to other countries in order to take us in. The ex-Soviets who got to Italy marveled at the amount of food, and they couldn't believe it. A lot of them talked about wanting to faint because they didn't understand how there was so much food available for people to buy. We're going to have that sensation if Mamdani is the kind of plan that America wants to get on. Grocery stores are already in New York City all over the place, fairly inexpensive. The idea that he's going to make grocery stores even cheaper is crazy. There's no huge markup on groceries. And I just think, part of his thing is free stuff. Free stuff is a very powerful argument. And the conservative side, Republicans, and even, moderates and independents need to figure out a way to counter that in a smart way. His messaging is very slick. It reminds me of my pictures from the late 90s or early 2000s. It's that kind of gloss on them, that kind of sheen. It makes people subconsciously think about the glory days of New York City. And I think that he has a very tight thing going on, and he will be hard to beat, but the sane New Yorkers who are left need to start now.
Noticing thinning hair, a bigger forehead, or more strands in the brush? You're not alone, and the Wellness Company has a solution. It's called Roots, a doctor-formulated topical hydrogel made from 7 peptides that support your body's natural repair process for visibly thicker, fuller hair. Roots works from the inside out, helping extend the growth phase, reducing shedding, and supporting follicle health with antioxidant-rich methylene blue. Whether it's postpartum, hormonal, or age-related hair loss, Roots targets the root cause, literally. Go to twc.health/Rubin and use code Rubin for 15% off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/Rubin, code Rubin.
All right, so if people don't think that having government-run grocery stores in that city is bad enough, I want to read 2 tweets of his. We will support existing decarceral legislation that will end cash bail, repeal the walking while trans ban, decriminalize sex work, legalize marijuana, permit safe injection sites, restrict solitary confinement, enact elder parole, re-enfranchise incarcerated New Yorkers. We will also introduce new decarceral legislation to decriminalize simple drug possession, repeal all mandatory minimum sentences, reduce maximum sentences with retroactive effect, repeal felony bump-up statutes, repeal sentencing enhancements, end cooperation with ICE. Walking while trans, I don't know what the high hell that is. Buck, you want to take a stab at it? I'm just guessing it's not good. Related to all of the other things, probably not great. Walking while trans.
Not to put you in a corner, Dave, I was going to ask you for help on that. I have no idea what walking while trans is. I have no idea.
I'm actually not going to let my guys Google it. Normally we would fact check during a show, but nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen on that one. Look, here's the... I've gone over this many times on the radio because I think it's important for people to understand the cycle. And it is when you start doing these things that can sound good in theory, like we're just not going to punish people. What you end up doing is allowing far more people, really encouraging far more people to be punished by criminal offenders. It's not like the suffering stops. You're just removing a degree of suffering from those who are inflicting suffering on others, right? It's like squeezing the balloon. You don't actually get rid of the air. You just move it to one side. And so when you do things like, oh, we're going to have safe injection sites and we're going to decriminalize drugs and we're going to decriminalize sex work. All right, well, now you're going to have encampments in parks in Manhattan and in Brooklyn and elsewhere of people who are injecting drugs in broad daylight, who are going to be severe addicts, who are going to be trading sexual activities for the money they need to buy the drugs. And when they don't, can't do that or won't do that or whatever, they're going to turn to petty crime because they're severe addicts. And now you're going to have people who are going to be getting their stuff stolen, and there'll be people who are having psychological breakdowns because they're so high on these drugs, and they're going to attack people and there'll be violence. It's just, this is what happens. This is what happened in San Francisco. This is what happened in Seattle. This is what happens in every city that goes down this pathway. And the fact that this still is something that anybody would support, it's because they haven't, it's actually Ben Affleck is who I saw with this. And I have not seen a lot of wisdom from Ben Affleck over the years, but he has made some good movies, to be fair. I thought he was probably best in Boiler Room. We can talk about this another time. He was excellent at like the Long Island, kind of super douche.
Yeah,
but,
that was basically around the town I grew up in.
Yeah, totally. He could, so he, though, said something about how he really conquered alcoholism. And I just thought this was really interesting. He's like, he's like, I don't want to put down AA. AA can work for people. It's great. He went through this whole thing. He's like, but you just haven't suffered enough. He's like, eventually you reach a point where you actually have suffered so much that you want things to change. And
so
that
Karol,
can be
is that... Yeah, so is that kind of what everyone's take really should be like, okay, fine, maybe Eric Adams slightly delays the inevitable, but that really they just have to hit rock bottom over there. We know we're going to get the influx here in Florida, and there'll be some other places that people flee to, but it will mostly be down here for several reasons. And just let them hit rock bottom, and it kind of is what it is.
So I'm very mixed on that. I still have a lot of family and friends in Brooklyn and in Manhattan, and I don't want to see New York collapse. I should also note, it's interesting, that tweet is January 2020. Now, that kind of thing does not go national until summer of 2020. So he was an early adopter of all the insanity that came to follow. Until George Floyd killing, it really... all of that had really been an underground thing. And it wasn't saying things like defund the police was considered extremely insane until that summer where it went mainstream on the left. So I don't know. I can't root for New York's demise. I want to see it pick itself up and brush itself off and go back to being the city that was really amazing for a while. I think that, a lot of people say to me like, oh, why didn't you move sooner? Because New York was great. It was great. It was great for 8 years of Giuliani and then 12 years of Mike Bloomberg. And then even the first term of Bill de Blasio, he really coasted on all of their accomplishments. It took work to undo all the policies that had made New York flourish. And Bill de Blasio, not a big worker, but he put in the effort for that.
The craziest part is that Giuliani made it so good and Bloomberg ran off of that the worst thing that was happening under Bloomberg was they were basically like, you can't have big soda, and everybody was going crazy.
Having solved all other problems.
This is we see this in different ways playing out in other places in the country too. One of the things that annoys me the most about, well, there's a lot of things, and I think you call him a soulless lizard person, which is apt, Dave, which is Gavin Newsom. I think soulless lizard person, you nailed it with that. But he always says, like our economy is like the fourth largest economy. And, he's got a shirt unbuttoned down to his navel, and he's like, our economy is the fourth best economy or biggest economy in the world. And I always want to scream at the television, not because of you or anything you have done. It became that when California was a Republican state, which allowed for the incredible growth. People think of Silicon Valley as a recent thing. Silicon Valley got started really back in the 50s, in the 60s. Silicon Valley's been around a long time. California was a Republican state, and it was able to grow and become really the dreamland of America when it wasn't overrun with illegals and doing crazy left-wing stuff. And my point on this is that it takes a while for the iceberg to melt, right? Yeah. And now we see it with people leaving California. Now we see it, but it's like a kid who inherits all of his parents' money and is a total moron, when he's a young adult. And it's like, oh, well, I'm still rich, so like you shut up. It's like, well, yeah, but you're going to run out of money and you're destroying everything that was built before you. That is Democrats. It is Democrats in the state of California. It is Democrats in New York City. And by the way, it's socialists everywhere. I mean, this is just the constant thing. They take over. It takes a while for it to get bad. They live off the fruits of those who were smarter and better before them. And then when it's terrible, they're like, yeah, it's somebody else's fault. That's what they do.
Well, it looks like we all made the right decision then, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Let me read you. This is the one he actually deleted. We don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need is to defund the NYPD. So that one he has deleted, but he is still talking about how we shouldn't have police showing up to certain crimes because they escalate things, and you should have social workers, something like that. Buck, you know a little something about law enforcement. I mean, is this just profoundly absurd?